Let's talk about the life of beef cattle. From birth to branding to beheading, everything that goes into making that tasty beef burger possible. I hope you're hungry. A heifer, which is the term for a female before giving birth for the first time, reaches puberty at 12 to 14 months old, at which point their ovaries are ripe for a little impregnation. Artificial insemination, as we like to call it, is becoming more and more popular, since it's the cheapest, safest, and most effective way of spreading superior genetic material, such as growth speed and meat quality. It also means that we can breed a large group of females in a single day. Ka-ching! So let's get into that AI business. Firstly, we're gonna need some sperm, which means playing with a bull's. We've got two options here. The first is to use an AV, or artificial vagina, which is where we trick the bull into thinking that he's having sex, but actually, we're wanking him off with a bovine fleshlight. If you don't have a cow to hand, there is no need to fear, because you can simply stimulate him anally with an electro-ejaculator while your mate collects his cum in a cup. Now I know what you're thinking. You're probably worried that we're breaking bestiality laws, but don't worry. There are loopholes specifically written into bestiality law to allow us to continue putting dildos in bulls' asses. Convenient. It's all about intention, you see. We do it for money. Most of us don't get boners, and that's what makes it okay. Now we need to get that sperm up into the female, so we'll restrain her and fist her ass until she shits all over the place. This gives us some room to work with because we'll be holding her cervix in place through the rectal wall, while the other arm penetrates her cervix with an insemination gun. At this point, she's about 65% of her mature weight, and she'll reach 85% right around the time she gives birth, 9.5 months later. If we were to wait until heifers were fully grown, we'd be waiting for 7 years. That's a long time to wait for a paycheck, and they're only cows anyway. 50 days after giving birth, mom's good to go again. So what do you do with the babies, I hear you ask? Well, they need to go through a few procedures. First up, we have dehorning. We like to get this done at less than 6 months old because we can save money on pain relief. I know it sounds bad on the surface, but we do it for their own good. Horns can cause injury to other cattle when we confine them or transport them to the slaughterhouse, which can affect hide quality and damage equipment and people. You see, we actually do care. Now, there are a few ways to remove a horn. One is with a dehorning knife, which we use to cut into and remove about 1 centimeter of the skin surrounding the horn butts. It's pretty quick with younger calves actually, because the horn hasn't attached to the skull yet. Now, another way we can do this is with a dehorning iron, which, as you might have guessed, is a hot iron. All we do here is heat the thing up to a measly 600 degrees Celsius, put it over the horn bud, and give it a few twists. The heat cauterizes the wound, which is good for the calf because they don't get blood dripping down their face. You're welcome. Then we have these fun little gadgets called scoop dehorners, which is quite fun to say. You just pop the horn in the hole and push the handles down. Bam! You've got horn ice cream. Just try to use the right size though, or you'll leave a big hole in their head. It does happen. Then we have cup dehorners, which we usually use once the calf has become a little bit too big. Again, we like to cut out a complete ring of skin around the horn. There's a lot of blood and wounds with these methods, which can cause fly strike, so we cover their heads in disinfectant and insecticides. Now that is what animal welfare looks like. The females can take a little break at this point to check out their cool new do, but for the males, it's testicle time. There are a few reasons we castrate beef calves. One is so undesirables don't pass on their genes. Another is so they're less likely to damage fences, and the last, and let's be honest the main one, is that it stops their meat from getting tough, which customers don't seem to like. Now I want you to picture something called a calf cradle. This is what we generally like to use to literally rip the testicles out of a defenseless baby animal. It's nothing too bad, to be honest. All we do is cut open the scrotum to reveal the testicles and use our fingers to rip the spermatic cord out of the testicle, and then rip the testicles out of the scrotum using this harmless little thing called a triple crush emasculator. Another way we can do this is by using an illustrator ring, which cuts the circulation off from the scrotum and the testicles, which I heard some people are into doing to themselves, so who's to say cattle don't enjoy it? After 3 to 6 weeks, the scrotum and testicles will simply drop off, just like nature intended. Lastly, we might use bloodless castration pincers to irreparably crush the blood vessels and spermatic cord. It only takes 6 weeks for the testicles to atrophy after that. I can taste that steak already. We also need to brand our calves to prove that they're our property, so at 2 to 6 months old, we might use a hot iron. This is where we hold an iron over a fire until it's glowing and red hot, before applying it to the calf for just 3 itty-bitty seconds. But if you think that's too cruel for whatever reason, you can always go for freeze branding, which can be fun because you're playing with liquid nitrogen. We cool the irons in that funky stuff until they're covered in ice. Then we apply it to the calf. but this time it's for 20 to 24 seconds. But hey, don't feel too bad for them. I've wanted a new tattoo for ages, but they're getting theirs for free. Lucky bastards. Some farmers prefer to avoid branding since it decreases the value of the hide, so we might go for tagging, which is a free ear piercing to complete that punk rock look. Some areas actually require this, or if not, they at least require notching. That's where we cut chunks of flesh out of their ears. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. I wish we could keep hold of all of our hard-earned dollars, but when you're trying to maximize your space, these selfish little bastards get sick. So we gotta fill them up with antibiotics and supplements. In a way, this is good though, because up to 39% of people in the US are deficient or low in vitamin B12, so supplementing their meat is one way of getting it to them. I mean, they do have alternatives. They could just take B12 directly or in anything else that's fortified, but I prefer you didn't tell anyone about that one. Okay. Then we have hormonal growth implants, which are small pellets that contain a growth stimulant, which increases daily gains by 10 to 20%. There can be side effects like vaginal and rectal prolapse, but it's not common enough for us to stop using them. But if you think that's the nastiest thing we put in their food, you'd be dead wrong. They don't know what they're eating, so we'll give them broiler litter, which is literally the manure and feces of meat chickens. But come on, before you judge, there's a lot to go around. It's environmental, and it saves us money. After all, it's got protein, energy, and minerals, so why wouldn't you utilize it? I mean, I wouldn't eat it, but they counts. And I mean, it's not that gross anyway. We have to stop feeding it to them 15 days before slaughter, so... Since these aren't dairy cows, we don't have to separate the baby straight away. Beef cows are traditionally separated at 6 to 8 months old, but with proper management, you can do it as little as 90 days old. But don't worry, Mum doesn't seem to mind. At this point, life can look very different from calf to calf. About 1/3 of the females should consider themselves lucky, because they'll be selected to join the breeding herd and become mothers the following year, and we'll help her out by giving her progesterone for maintaining pregnancy. At that point, she becomes pretty much useless. Her reproductive performance will decline, so we pretty much have no choice but to turn her into tasty, tasty beef. The rest of the cattle will be sent for backgrounding or stocking, which is where we fatten them up. Sometimes this will mean they're mainly kept in fields, but intensive indoor systems where cattle spend almost or all of their lives are not uncommon either. After all, the latter saves us money on land and improved feed efficiency, since the cattle don't need to move around as much. During this time, some of the cattle might be sold at auction, a practice that is outlawed in humans but thankfully remains in other species. Eventually though, the vast majority of cattle will end up living on a feedlot for up to the last 300 days of their lives. At this point they're less than a year old, but already they weigh 220 to 320 kilos, and my wife calls me fat. The purpose of these feedlots is to confine cattle in a place where they can reach a certain weight as efficiently as possible. That means as quickly and as cheaply as we can do it. And we do this by providing an easy to digest, high energy diet, and by confining them so they don't have to expend as much energy. In Australia, around 80% of beef sold in major domestic supermarkets comes from cattle in these feedlots, as do 97% of beef cattle in the US. Once these guys reach 550 kgs, which is at about 18 months old, they're finally ready to be slaughtered. Processed. The word slaughter is not appropriate for our industry, as we are processing animals through the various stages that end up for food. It's not a mass murder. That's a word-for-word quote, but I think I'm getting sidetracked. Some of us like to keep our feedlots close to the slaughterhouse and packing plant to help save costs on transportation. Just doing our bit for the environment there, no need to thank us. Animal agriculture is responsible for at least 14.5% of greenhouse gas emissions after all. There's no point in hiding that. It's convenient for these cattle, but some cattle will have to go a little bit further to get to the slaughterhouse. For these guys, we don't have to give them any food or water if the trip is under 48 hours long, which saves us money and produces less mess in the slaughterhouse. It's a win-win. Upon arrival to the slaughterhouse, cattle are sorted into holding pens before being sent down a race that leads to the killing floor. One by one, cattle are herded into a cradle or a box chute, restrained, and a captive bolt gun is used to stun and hopefully kill them. This gun is fascinating. It uses a steel rod that is driven by compressed air into the forehead of the animal, which means no wasted bullets. How cool is that? Once the animal is killed, or at least thought to be stunned, we lower a side panel which allows the cattle to drop down. This makes it easier for the next worker to shackle their hind legs to a conveyor system. At this point, a knife is used to cut through the dewlap, trachea, esophagus, and jugular vein to allow the blood to flow out. This prevents blood from coagulating in the tissues and making the meat go rancid. Just a reminder, what you're looking at right now is food. We don't want anything disgusting to happen to it. Then it's time to skin them. We start with the hind legs and cut down the median line of the belly. Mechanical hide pullers are then used for removing the rest of the skin, including the skin on the head. And then we'll take a mechanical saw similar to a chainsaw and cut through the legs, head, breast, and rear bones. We then remove the spine and all the internal organs apart from the kidneys. We do this by cutting their anus out and dumping everything in a cart. It's not like they're gonna need it anyway. Now if you're into your biology, this part might tickle your curiosity. We cut through the middle of the animal, splitting them into two halves, right down through the backbone. So we get a nice little view of the insides of the animal. But it's still a little bit dirty, so we power wash that mutilated remains. F me. Lastly, the insides of these animals have never been cleaned before, so we power wash their mutilated remains and leave them to dry. No wonder slaughterhouse workers have higher rates of serious psychological distress. But thanks to them, I get to sit in the voiceover booth with a tasty Big Mac. It's no wonder that a growing population of people are choosing to leave meat off their plates. But what about dairy? Click here to find out why a dairy cow might actually have a worse life than a beef cow.